So you're probably already familiar a little bit with categorizing tornadoes. We used to use the regular Fujita scale, and now since I think it's '06 or '07, we use what's called the enhanced Fujita scale, but it's still from 0 to 5, is 0s being the weakest tornado and 5 being the strongest. On the old F scale, Fujita scale, here are some statistics with regard to how frequent we get these weak tornadoes, strong tornadoes, and very strong tornadoes. If we kind of classify our F0s to F1 as weak, F2 to F3 as strong, and our F4 and F5 tornadoes as very strong. First off, over here you can see how frequently they occur. About 70% or so of the tornadoes are weak, and then 30% are moderate, that'd be F2 to F3, and then only about 2% of all the tornadoes are F4, F5, so there's not very many. But if only 2% of the tornadoes are F4 or F5, notice that they account for about 70% of all fatalities. So it's just the nature of it. Let's see. Oh, I'm just reading this as you're reading it maybe, but the Fujita scale, the old scale, actually tended to be more intense than the new scale. So, but looking at the classification now from, again, the EF0 being the weakest tornado and the F5 or EF5 being the strongest tornado, you can see that here they're categorized by wind speed. Now, one of the things about understanding the wind speed that's associated with a tornado is you're not going to stand out in the middle of a tornado with your little anemometer, which measures wind speed, and watch it, to measure the wind speed. The wind speed for tornadoes are measured after the event. So what they do basically is, I've mentioned the word forensics recently, kind of how we understand what the tornado was like as it's been there. So via kind of a bit of forensics, we can deduce what the wind speed must have been, and you can see how it's broken down. Now, this way of categorizing a tornado is different than, in the next chapter, we're going to talk about tropical cyclones, or hurricanes is what they're called in our neck of the woods. And the way we categorize hurricanes is real time. So this kind of looks at a little bit again at statistics. It's what we looked at earlier, basically. It's looking at the old scale, the F scale, but if you look at weak tornadoes first, those being F or EF0 to F1, notice that they occur a lot, that's the red line, and there aren't a lot of fatalities, that is the yellow, I should say bar, that's the yellow bar. If we move to our strong tornadoes, EF or F2 to F3, notice that they are less in occurrence, that's the red bar, and we have more fatalities though. And then if we go clear over here, again, this is kind of percentages we looked at before. Notice that our very violent tornadoes, the F4s and F5s, notice that they don't occur very much. I think the statistic we looked at before was 2% of all tornadoes are this highest one, but they account for the majority of the fatalities. So one of the things I'm hoping you get from this chapter is when we have a severe weather watch or tornado watch, what that means is that the watch means that conditions are favorable for it to happen. So watches are usually given a little bit in advance. This says about 4 hours in advance for a large area. So watches mean that they really think it's going to happen. Warnings means that it is happening and it's, headed your way. So a tornado warning or a severe storm warning means that it is, like I said, it is occurring and it's headed your way, versus a watch. So warnings are given closer to time when they're going to actually hit you. Remember that we talked about storm warnings, thunderstorm warnings, and remember these warnings only go out when we have a certain wind speed, I think it was 58 miles per hour, and or when we have a certain size of hail, 1 inch or larger, And then the last criteria for issuing a storm warning would be if it has produced tornadoes. Okay, so watch is not as imminent as a warning is. Now I went ahead and added a couple of slides back in because with regard to kind of these long-term watches, the Storm Prediction Center out of Norman, Oklahoma actually puts out what they call convective outlooks, and it's kind of neat because if you listen to the weather radio, they will tell you convective outlooks for the next day, for 2 days out, for 3 days out. I think it goes up to for 5 days out. And it's just kind of showing you, like the slide says, the general probability of different types of severe weather. So I just snagged, actually this is a figure from your textbook showing you, for instance, this is just 1 day out, and it's showing you, this says high, moderate, and slight chance of, in this case, severe weather. This slide is showing possibilities for tornadoes. Again, out 1 day. This is showing where damaging winds might occur, and this is showing probability of hail. What's interesting or not so surprising is that they are all in all of those kind of different types of severe weather. It's kind of focused right in this region, isn't it? So I went ahead, and here's the website up here. I'm not going to take you to it right now, I don't think. But if you go to this website, it's a good website to get the outlook of even more than a day in advance. You know, you might want to do this if you're planning to go camping at the end of the week. You know, it just gives you a kind of an outlook of what the weather might be. Now, when we talk about forecasting in a couple chapters from now, we're going to see that your intuition is right if you say, well, the farther out I go to predict the weather, the worse it's going to be, and that is true. So back to your slides if you printed them out. I guess I don't have a what do you do when we are under a thunderstorm warning or a bunch of lightning, because it's different than if you're afraid of a possible tornado. But let's talk about tornado safety. So what you want to do is get indoors if possible. If the indoors has a basement, that's where you want to be. If it doesn't have a basement, go to an interior room don't climb any stairs on the lowest level. You've heard a lot of this, but I'm just reminding you in case you haven't. If it's a tornado that you're needing to protect yourself from, you can go ahead and use a mattress to cover yourself. And I've heard take a mattress, and depending upon the location of your bathroom, you can hunker down in your bathtub. If you are in a mobile home, mobile homes can be picked up more readily than a normal home, so you should find yourself into a fixed building if possible. If you're driving a vehicle, get off the road, and do not park near or under an overpass. So, because that is not a good place in case the overpass collapses if the tornado heads that way. And overpasses also can funnel wind and be kind of like a wind tunnel, and you'll have issues there too. So if you're driving a vehicle, don't pass now. Don't park near an overpass, but you want to get off the road and seek shelter in a building if you can. Now, if there is no building to seek shelter in, like this says, find a low spot in the ground. I've heard people, and maybe you have too, on some of these tornado, they recount somebody surviving a tornado, that if you're looking for a place to hunker down in,